Trebor Pena, the receiver who was leaving Syracuse. We talked about him when Fran Brown said all the stuff about receivers asking for $2 million. Trebor Pena didn't ask for $2 million, but he probably asked for more than Syracuse was willing to pay. Ari, he has made a decision on where he wants to transfer. It is Penn State.
Coming to Penn State. If you know what that was. If you know, you know. You know, Andy?
Yes, I do. It was an old Big Ten Network commercial where Joe Paterno said, "Come to Penn State."
Come to Penn State. We talked about this. It happened. Penn State's number one weakness as a team and a program for the last few years is lack of explosive, dynamic wide receiver talent. We also talked about how impossible it was to find somebody who was a proven productive innings eater, ball catcher, game breaker. One fell out of the sky in the spring portal, and Penn State capitalized. And it's not just a guy that came from nowhere. He came from the Northeast. He's from New York, and that's New York, one of Penn State's important recruiting footprints. And they got a guy. And so now when I look around, the reason why I didn't have Penn State higher in our way too early top 25 earlier is I wasn't necessarily convinced that they addressed their biggest issue, which was nobody to catch the football. And Tyler Warren's not there. I know they've got some pretty young, exciting players, especially at the tight end position, that could help do that, but you don't replace Tyler Warren. So when you go out now and you have your two running backs, you got Denai Dennis Sutton, you got good lines, you got a good defense, and you got a quarterback that people think is going to be a top 5 pick a year from now. You start having the real discussion, which is, was Penn State's run in the college football playoff a year ago the beginning of the window or the end of the window? And it kind of starts to feel like the beginning of the window, and how they might be in the conversation for number 1 overall team in the offseason. And before you say James Franklin's a choke artist, shut the hell up, because that doesn't matter. It's April. We're analyzing their team. Their team is awesome. And obviously we both had Texas winning the national championship. Texas is very, very good and very deep. But I think you could make a real case that Penn State, in terms of the players who are on the field making plays, is as talented and diverse as anybody else in college football.
Agreed. Now, the real coconut says lose Warren, gain Pena equals net negative. That's not how this works.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
You're not really understanding how football works. Luke Reynolds is going to replace Tyler Warren at tight end.
Good. He's good.
He's good. He may not be Tyler Warren, but he should be a productive tight end. This is more about them replacing the receivers who caught 0 balls in the Orange Bowl against Notre Dame. And so now they have Kyron Hudson from USC, Devontae Ross, who was Troy's best receiver last year, and Trebor Pena, who caught a bunch of passes for Syracuse. He's not necessarily a game breaker. He is a guy who's going to get open and catch the ball and get you down the field and move the sticks. He's also pretty good in the red zone. So 84 catches, 941 yards. That's an 11.2 average. That is not off the charts. 9 touchdowns, though. This is a guy who's going to catch the ball and who can get open field, catch the ball, move the sticks, keep drives going. The other 2 guys you brought in, you're hoping will stretch the field. This is your guy who's going to catch the ball.
Yeah.
Which you have not had.
A guy who's going to consistently be open and catch the ball. I kind of feel like he is like Restrepo-ish. No?
Restrepo averaged a little more.
No, I'm just saying, in terms of getting open, catching the ball, being reliable, throwing forward, he's going to catch the ball.
Exactly. Understands how space works because he's in the slot. He understands how to find open space. This has been Penn State's problem, is if they're not in second and short where they can use that running game to just punish you. If you let's say you miss on first down and you have second and long or third and long, they just haven't had that guy that can get you 10, 11 yards at the receiver position. They had Tyler Warren who could do it, but now they've got probably multiple guys, because I think Luke Reynolds is going to be like that too. And I would assume one or both of Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross will be that. So
I have this
now Drew Aller has many more options than he had.
Yeah. I'm high on Penn State, and you're going to release your top 25.
It is out. It's out.
I meant we're going to talk about yours tomorrow. Mine will go tomorrow.
Yes.
And we'll talk about mine at some point too. But I wanted to make this point, Andy, before we get out of here, which is receivers in college football last year were plentiful. It was a very deep receiver draft. And if you look at where some really good receivers went, Dominic Lovett, would you say was the best receiver on Georgia's roster last year? And he wasn't the first one drafted, but I thought he was the best one. Maybe
Arian Smith. You knew Arian Smith would go higher because of his measurables. Because he was going to run really fast.
Dominic Lovett seemed to be the guy last year. He was a 7th round pick. Caden Prather from Maryland, 7th round pick. Ricky White, the 3rd, the UNLV star, who I had on my Heisman ballot for half the year, 7th round. Tez Johnson from Oregon, 7th round. LeJontay Wester, Colorado, 6th round. Torrey Horton from Colorado State, I believe, was a 5th round pick. And you start going down this list, and I can keep going.
We were there Thursday and Friday, had so much fun. We met the Culver CEO, Julie Fussner, who's awesome. Her husband's the CEO of Johnsonville, which is that's unbelievable, like the biggest power couple ever. But
there should be a ButterBurger somewhere in the mix.
But she said the Curder burger is coming in October. So mark your calendars. That is the ButterBurger with a giant cheese curd patty on top of it. I had my first cookie dough concrete mixer, which, oh my God, the way my eyes rolled back into the back of my head on the video, there was no acting there. That's 100% real reaction.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, that was. I had 4 or 5 different flavors all in one sitting, so that was good for the pep to get us through the rest of the show. But their food is legitimately delicious. Like I tweeted about this. It's not just.
Well, you had a fish sandwich on Thursday. We Uber Eats some Culvers to the set on Thursday. Well,
Jalen Noel from Iowa State, 3rd round pick. Some guys who fell, and it's just like Trey Harris was a 2nd round pick. I love Trey Harris. By the way, Jim Harbaugh building a squad out in LA. We can talk about that at some point. I don't know if you're paying attention to that. The point is how are none of these players on Penn State's roster? Could you imagine if Penn State had Tez Johnson last year, a lowly 7th round pick who just like barely made it onto an NFL team? Could you imagine if they had Xavier Restrepo who wasn't even drafted? Like, what about even Jacoby George from Miami? He wasn't drafted either, and I think he signed with the Panthers. Like, none of them were on Penn State's team. Could you imagine if Jacoby George was on their team last year? I'm not even talking about having Jeremiah Smith. Like, all
of these people you're talking about, they're playing for the national championship if one of those guys is on their team. One of them.
And again, they're not 1st round picks. I'm not inserting Jeremiah Smith onto their roster. I'm like, could you imagine if they had Trey Harris? And that's a 2nd round pick, obviously, but like they didn't have a single player at the position that was even drafted. And I think Keandre Lambert Smith was on their team at one point, which is funny, but like it's just not there. So, like, listen, Pena might not be a 1st round pick or a 2nd round pick, but if Trebor Pena is Xavier,
he's what they needed. He is exactly what Penn State needed.
And I'm going to write
what we talked about when James Franklin was on the show, and James Franklin, unprompted, like we didn't ask him about it, he said, got to get more out of the receiver position.
I don't think we can. I think we're understating how big this was for them, and people are saying that we're pumping sunshine because he was on our show at one point, James Franklin.
Guys, they if they made 20 yards instead of throwing an interception, if they made 20 yards and kicked a field goal, they would have played for the national championship last year.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a bad team.
Team addresses big weakness with huge, really good player at that position. How is that not important?
Raymond Horton, come on, Andy. Am I wrong? Would they have not played for the national championship if they kicked a field goal on that last drive instead of throwing an interception? Like, that's what happened.
Somebody wrote, if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bike. And I've never heard that before. I think that's
It's a
funny.
good one. It's a good one.
Have you heard that? I've never heard that.
We got to give that one to Wilfong next time he's on.
I honestly don't know what that means. Like, these are unequivocal facts. Like, he hasn't shared an opinion.
People just want Penn State to be bad or want James Franklin to not be a good coach, or I don't know what it is, but like they can't reconcile actual facts. Like Penn State was in the national semifinals last year. They had the ball with 2 minutes to go. Drew Aller did throw a terrible interception, but had that drive gone differently, they would have played for the national championship. It's not that far-fetched.
It's not far-fetched. It's what happened.
Yeah. If he'd had 3 receivers that he felt comfortable throwing to instead of 0, like 3 receivers and a tight end instead of 0 receivers and a tight end.
You're like reading out a news story right now. Like, it's not even an opinion. It's just like what
I know.
Yeah, it's what happened. Anyway, I'm gonna write, and I'll probably be the one that's gets the brunt of this criticism. But I'm gonna write about Pena. I almost
put him number 1, coward. Put him number 1 in your post spring top 20. Put him number 1.